Alrighty. Well, we come to you tonight on the lands of First Peoples around the country. I come to you from the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara people, as I live in Brisbane, or otherwise known as Mianjin. So we recognise and respect the First Peoples of this country, and pay our respects to those who may be at this meeting, elders and others, and recognise that their lands were never ceded. So would anyone like to offer any apologies from anyone who wanted to have that acknowledged? Yes, Tamara?
Catherine Kelly sends her apologies.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty, we've got a note taker. And I'm just sort of going to start this webinar with a brief overview of the campaign to cancel AUKUS and the forced posture agreements. I'm taking it that most of you really do know a fair bit about AUKUS and the forced posture agreement. Maybe not so much the forced posture agreement, because we have found in our outreach that that is an area that a lot of people don't know about. And maybe, Bevan, you might share that little information video in the chat for anyone who is a little bit hazy about just what the forced posture agreement signed in 2014 has got us into. The march to war just continues. We've got Albanese in New Guinea recruiting New Guinean people to join our defence force and to, again, try to build opposition to China in this region. We know that the United States is using Australian territory to set our country up as a forward leaping point to engage in such a war. And we in IPAN decided to run this campaign, not as IPAN, but as initiated by IPAN, with the hope that we would join with as many people as possible around the country, organisations and individuals, to really work hard to see these agreements cancelled, because they are putting us in real danger. We're in dire straits with the United States using Australia as a leaping point for war. So what we have started with is a call for the agreements to be cancelled, and that call has taken the form of a petition which we have been circulating fairly widely. We currently have around about 1,600 to 2,000 people have signed the call, and strategically our thinking is that that does give us a two-way contact with anyone who has signed the petition. They can contact us about concerns or questions that they might have, but we can stay in touch with them in a limited way, not overdoing it, but staying in touch with those 1,600 people to offer support, to put them in touch with local groups that are working already on AUKUS, to end AUKUS and the forced posture agreement. So our next steps in the campaign are really about building community, local community activism, to cancel these agreements and to work towards a more independent, self-reliant and peaceful nation, our nation. The news today, which you've all heard, of the exorbitant amounts of money going into our military at Henderson Base, just announced today, the 12 billion in the near future, leading up to 25 billion over 10 years, it is certainly just alarming, of course, that you know, it's our money, it's Australian people's money, and this is how they are abusing it, really. So tonight we've got an introductory speech by Jim Green, and then we're going to hear from activists in various parts of the country. The aim of this is really to hear what people are doing in different parts of Australia, and to learn information about the conditions on the ground in any of those places, but also to think about ways in which we can be supportive of what they're doing. And we can undertake maybe some of the actions that they're already undertaking and put them into effect wherever we are. So I'm going to hand over now to our first speaker, Jim. Most of you will know Jim Green. Jim's been a long time anti-nuclear campaigner with Friends of the Earth, and he's a regular media commentator on nuclear issues. He has an honours degree in public health from the University of Wollongong, which was interesting to learn, Jim, and was awarded a PhD in Science and Technology Studies for his analysis of the Lucas Heights research reactor debates. He's recently made public comment on a report, The British Experience with Nuclear-Powered Submarines, Lessons for Australia. So there are lessons for us to learn. Over to you, Jim.
Thanks, Annette, and thanks everyone for joining in. I would like to acknowledge the Kaurna traditional owners here in Adelaide. And before I get into my talk, I just want to mention some material that's up on the Friends of the Earth website. I've just put a link in the chat there, and that material includes multiple important briefing papers by David Noonan, who's with us tonight, and also the report that Annette just mentioned by British scientist Tim D. Jones. It's called The British Experience with Nuclear-Powered Submarines, Lessons for Australia, and it's sobering reading. I've been working on Dutton's nuclear power reactors for the past few years, so I'm now transitioning to do more work on AUKUS, and I would first like to thank all of you who have been focusing on AUKUS over the past 4 years. It's so important, and we've got so much more work to do, and I'm looking forward to being more involved in that. When I look back on anti-nuclear campaigns in recent decades, there are some common themes. One is that we are always outgunned in terms of resources and funding and media access and so on. We're often campaigning in the face of overtly undemocratic and overtly racist legislation, whether it's the Roxby Downs Indenture Act, the National Radioactive Waste Management Act, some of the AUKUS legislation, and so on. But we have always persisted. We've always kept fighting even when the odds are against us, and we've won more campaigns than we've lost in recent decades. And if we didn't keep fighting when the odds were against us, we would never have won any of those campaigns. And I've also put a link in the chat to some material on the Friends of the Earth website celebrating a number of successful campaigns over the years and decades. Another common theme in anti-nuclear campaigns in recent decades is the central role that First Nations communities have played, and including their central role in successful campaigns, whether it's the Kupapiti Kungajuda preventing the Howard government imposing a nuclear waste dump, Muckaty traditional owners in the Northern Territory preventing a nuclear dump, same with Adnyamathanha traditional owners, and most recently Bangla traditional owners. And it's imperative that we do everything within our power to support First Nations communities who are fighting against AUKUS, or who are fighting against specific aspects of AUKUS, including nuclear waste management proposals. And more broadly, we need to support First Nations communities to secure the right to free, prior and informed consent. A federal Labor-dominated committee in November 23 recommended that the Commonwealth and government ensure its approach to developing legislation and policy on matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people be consistent with the articles outlined in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. And the UN Declaration clearly states that hazardous waste material should not be imposed on the lands of Indigenous peoples without their free, prior and informed consent. So that's great to see that from a federal Labor-dominated committee. In South Australia, we also have state Labor government policy that First Nations communities should have a right of veto over nuclear projects. That policy dates back to the Wetherell era 10 years ago, and that policy is still in place now. But the problem we have is that both federal and state Labor governments are not living up to their promises. They're ignoring their own policies, and they need to act. We need to put pressure on the state and federal governments to implement the recommendations of the 2023 federal inquiry, to put pressure on them to respect the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and to enshrine the concept of free, prior and informed consent, both with respect to policy and legislation. Now I'm focusing on SA because I live here in SA, but I assume that the same problems are playing out in WA as well. And this is all coming to a head. We've got great words, great sentiments from state and federal governments, but what they're doing is the exact opposite. And in particular, I want to highlight some work that David Noonan has been doing. And in particular, AUKUS regulations will come into force on the 1st of November this year. And this will give the federal government power to impose nuclear waste storage and disposal facilities at Osborne and the comparable facility in WA, but also anywhere in South Australia and anywhere in Australia, with no regards to the rights of First Nations communities and no regards to the rights of anyone else. It's grossly undemocratic and racist. It's a clear violation of South Australian legislation, namely the SA Nuclear Waste Storage Prohibition Act of 2000. As things stand, the federal government plans to permit nuclear waste storage in South Australia in violation of state law. And as things stand, the state Labor government is unlikely to fight that imposition. So this is unacceptable. We have to fight the federal government and the state government and the state government in WA and SA. There is work going on to pressure the federal government via friendly politicians and to put whatever obstacles we can in the face of these regulations, which are due to come in force on November 1. And there's work going on to pressure state Labor as well. But we need all the support we can get. And there will be requests for support circulating on email and social media in the near future. And I just want to transition now to a few thoughts on what we might do in the coming months and years. The UK and the US governments have initiated inquiries into AUKUS. If it's good enough for them, well, it's good enough for us. There needs to be an inquiry in Australia, not one of these sham tokenistic inquiries where they're just really going through a tokenistic consultation process and ignoring everything that's been said. We need a real inquiry. So there's two questions. How do we get an inquiry initiated? I'm thinking of a federal parliamentary inquiry, but people might have other ideas. And secondly, how do we make it a genuine inquiry rather than a tokenistic box-ticking exercise? I noticed this morning on ABC Radio that Shadow Defence Minister Angus Taylor said that defence spending is being gutted, in his words, because all the funding is going to AUKUS, and that might be an interesting term of reference for a federal inquiry, in addition to all the issues that we would like to put on there. So some discussion on the need for an inquiry and how we would get it established and how we would make it a genuine inquiry. That would be welcome from other speakers and in the discussion period. There's a National Day of Action this weekend. I would strongly encourage everyone to get involved. And I think this has been organised at fairly short notice, so people are being asked to do the best they can at short notice. If it's a very small action, well, so be it. It's all welcome and it all adds up. I think there's a need for a bigger National Day of Action in the coming months, perhaps early next year. And I think we should organise our thinking around the Labor National Conference, which is due to be held in late July or August of next year in Adelaide. And we should aim to initiate as many processes and protests as we can to put pressure on Labor ahead of their national conference mid next year. And my last point is just this incredibly frustrating problem that there's no support within federal parliamentary Labor. They really need to stand up and get active on this issue. And I don't have any simple solution for how we reverse that, but we do need to reverse it, whether it's coming up with proposals for members of the public to visit their local Labor politicians, give them cheat sheets in terms of notes and encouragement and whatever we can to put pressure on federal Labor parliamentarians, because that has to switch around, and fairly soon, if we're going to turn the tide against AUKUS. And I will leave it there and hand it back to you, Annette.
Annette, you're muted.
I gave a whole sentence there, muted. Oh, damn. I was saying that we'll leave the questions until after all of the speakers, I think. We don't want to make this meeting too long. I'm going to try and limit it to an hour and a half. So I'm going to ask Lynda Forbes. Lynda, are you here to give the next report from the Hunter Peace Group? But I don't see Lynda there.
I'm here.
Oh, you're there. There you are. Welcome, Lynda, and thanks for coming.
Thank you. That was a very interesting talk from Jim, and with lots of good points to consider. In Newcastle, the Hunter Peace Group is going to be very focused, and has been, but more so, on sort of tying together why the offshore wind farm that has been on the books for a while has virtually come to a standstill. The last company, Equinor, which was given a 2.5 gigawatt area or power, pulled out recently, and so the offshore wind off Newcastle has gone from being promised to be a 10 gigawatt field down to nothing at the moment. The Maritime Union of Australia, who would gain a lot from this project, as would Newcastle and as would workers, had a meeting in Canberra to try to turn this around, but we don't know what the outcome is. However, I'm very suspicious that this has come at a time when Newcastle has had a tremendous increase in defence industries. Now, whether they were already existing industries or they're new ones, most of our manufacturing at the moment is around defence industry stuff, whether it's component parts for munitions, missiles, drones, whatever. There has been a huge increase in the amount of militarization of the education system particularly with the Newcastle University welcoming with glee the Lockheed Martin and a couple of other armaments companies. And that's going through the schools, as we all know. That's happening across Australia, but it's very prevalent here, and it's in the schools, both secondary and primary. Also, on top of that, we have the expansion of the RAF base up here. And you all probably know that recently a $3 billion defence contract was given to Downers, and that's to deliver base and estate services. Previous to $180 million project form part of the department's Defence National Airfield Programme, and Newcastle was, Williamtown outside Newcastle was one of those airports that got an expansion. after the RAF base had already been expanded. And although we now get a few international flights in, it's really to have made the runway able to take the larger defence aircrafts to land near the Newcastle RAAF base at Williamtown. So there's an awful lot that's all coming together, and we're very skeptical that the defence, the growth of the defence industries and the big footprint that the defence Department of Defence and more have in this area is affecting possibly the plan for the offshore wind farm. We can't kind of prove that, but it's really a worrisome thing. And on top of that, we add to that we're also one of the ports who may become a nuclear port, which they are supposedly announcing by the end of this decade. I mean, it doesn't matter which port it is on the eastern seaboard, we don't want it. But Newcastle could well be it, because they really are spending a heap of money around here. And there's, as I say, most of the jobs in the industries and the scholarships in the schools and everything are basically defence industry orientated, you know, through the armaments companies and so on. So that's our campaign. We are concentrating on that aspect. I hope we're going to be proved completely wrong, but in my gut at the moment, I don't think we are. So we've got meetings. We're seeking meetings with all the relevant people, and of course doing all the writing and what have you. But we're also going to do a big leaflet thing around the area, hopefully the whole of the Hunter, where we're going to be affected, just pointing out some of these things to make people think about it. Because we need the people to start thinking that this could happen. And you know, it's not just all a big lark. And it's, you know, they've been pretty clever about it all, because going to the kids, the schools, and getting scholarships for the kids, you know, nobody's going to refuse a scholarship for their child, especially at the expense that universities cost. And if they're clever, it's a wonderful opportunity for them, but in the wrong direction. So what we are calling for is peaceful jobs, peaceful scholarships, and try to get an awareness in the community that this really could be a really bad thing.
Thanks very much, Lynda. That's great. So good to hear what you're doing in and around Newcastle. Okay, our next speaker is coming from Stop AUKUS WA, Leonie Lundy. Leonie, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm calling in from Wajak Noongar territory in Fremantle. Thank you to IPAN, to Jim, and a big shout out to Albert and also David on this call, whose writing we've gratefully used for our own members' education. Stop AUKUS was basically formed in 2021. We've got a supporter list of 450 plus and a Google organising group of over 130. We meet on Zoom roughly each fortnight. The core group comprises reps from 8 different political parties' persuasions. The main focus of our campaign has been that no nuke subs, to strive for a nuclear-free Indo-Pacific, locally to keep Coburg Sound, where both Stirling and Henderson are based, nuclear-free. Increasingly, we're also campaigning against the drive to war on China and the need for Australia to cut military ties with the US, in a way merging into an overall anti-bases campaign, anti-war, in that no way do we accept Australia being beholden to the US and to support them in any military action in our region or anywhere. To think that we can maintain sovereignty with AUKUS is extremely naive. Quick situational, HMAS Stirling on Garden Island in Coburn Sound is 20 kilometres as the crow flies from Fremantle. It's Australia's largest naval base. It is the home port of the Collins-class subs and part of the frigate fleet, as well as other Australian naval assets. Hence, it is not a US base, as sometimes claimed, rather a US access base, e.g. for the AUKUS SRF West rotations as of 2027. meaning that 4 US and 1 nuclear-powered submarines will be on rotation there, partly under the pretext to assist training and prep of Australia's crew for when Australia has its pie-in-the-sky nuclear-powered subfleet. Initially as a stopgap, 3 to 5 Virginias to be procured from the US, wishful thinking, and then of course the new AUKUS SSNs to be built at Osborne for delivery in the 240s, both fleet components to supposedly be home ported at Stirling. Although we're sceptical that either will ever eventuate, it makes Stirling, 5 kilometres off the coast of Rockingham, a key component of AUKUS, and obviously we need to maintain and mainly campaign on this basis. Enter into the mix the new defence precinct at Henderson, midway up the coast from Rockingham on the way to Fremantle, which, as Annette commented earlier, apart from building surface vessels and other defence assets, it will contain a major dry dock facility for depot level maintenance of AUKUS subs. And as became clear yesterday, has also been offered to the US to reduce its maintenance backlog. Australia hoping that by doing this, it will immediately appease Trump during the current AUKUS review and increase the likelihood of the US president of the day being able to tick off on the supply of the stopgap Virginias to Australia in the 230s. Both raise concerns about safety and emergency procedures, public health and environmental risks. These are all things we're campaigning on, of course. Impacts on First Nations, as Jim has touched on. Marine life, recreational fishers and water leisure activities in Coburn Sound, and the nuclear waste management and storage in the short term of low-level waste from the US and UK subs generated through in-water maintenance at Stirling, and the unknown of the waste generated at the Henderson dry dock, plus the presence of, obviously, US assets making Coburn Sound and surrounding communities a nuclear risk should hostilities break out in the region. The MUA, who want to keep the port in Fremantle rather than it be moved down that way further to or close to the heavy industrial area of Kwinana alongside Henderson, have now raised the security risk of container weaponisation, stirring the pot, and obviously anything to raise public awareness and make people a little concerned, we take on board. Unlike WAWAN, it's been a battle here to gain union support for the campaign. The promise of the 10,000 jobs clouds the vision. Hopefully MAPW can produce a briefing on worker safety issues pertaining to naval nuclear reactors similar to the one that was done against nuclear power, and we'll be able to circulate that more with the unions. So what are we doing? We organise actions, protests at defence events, outreach market stalls. We have various subgroups that cover lobbying MPs, liaising with Enviro, First Nations, union groups, tracking AUKUS Pillar 2 and weapons companies in education, sharing concerns, as with Newcastle also, about what's happening there. Absolutely perverse. Our focus also is largely on universities through the students on campus. We do letter write, or have some people doing letter writing, and we partake in the parliamentary committee and the Panzer submissions. Active on social media, now at about 30,000 engagements per month, or over 30,000 engagements per month on Facebook, and some Insta posts have actually reached up to 7,000 views, which we're pretty pleased with. We also liaise with the pro-Palestine groups. As with many campaigns, we long for more active numbers and younger people with capacity to drive actions. The Free Palestine movement has attracted youth engagement. We strive to inform folk about AUKUS, the wider movement, also tracking and exposing the growing list of weapons companies' links between the two campaigns. We had a group Brave the Storm yesterday. I don't know if some of you may have seen it on our social media. When Albo and Miles were down in Henderson to announce, the 12 billion, etc. Those pics are tracking really well. People on social media really like actions with people out there with banners and making a noise, basically. This week we're protesting at Defence's tick-the-box PR spruik, their attempt to gain social licence via these community information sessions, which were supposed to be AUKUS public meetings as per our Council General elected motions passed earlier this year. We've raised a list of about 14 questions we want honest answers to, covering various areas that I've just commented on and also some Jim has touched on. And I'm currently liaising with the Australian Submarine Agency, RIA guarantee they'll actually be answered, and that either they or we will be able to record the Q&A. Exposing the secrecy and lies are a major objective and media campaign, both to do with the waste issues, ASA's misinformation in its applications to APANZA for the waste facility licences, and us being led along regarding these council public meetings, and now read the dry dock at Henderson possibly being used for US subs maintenance, bringing US subs onto mainland WA. So hopefully this is going to make folk even more concerned, not happy. Next Sunday, we're doing a joint international action with the Palestine campaign groups in Fremantle, calling on sanctions, stop supplying arms and intelligence to Israel and to Council AUKUS and the FPA, and also to cut the US military ties. A major event for us will be the flotilla off the coast of Rockingham, planned for early November near HMAS Stirling, which is marking the standing up of the regulator, as Jim mentioned, and the hoped for suspected visit of the next US submarine. Engaging folk in Rockingham and Kwinana in our campaign is a challenge. Folk are blinded by the offer of jobs and money, although a growing number are concerned about defence outcompeting locals for housing, increasing concerns, roads, congestions, competition for health and education services, childcare is a huge problem, etc. It is really an uphill battle. So of major importance relevant to this webinar, HMAS Stirling pertains to the FPA, Force Posture Agreement, and the US rotations occurring as of 27 will fall under this. So under Article 5, the US will have a strong say in the safety and emergency procedures and any public announcements. To make things worse, getting information out of defence is like draining blood out of a stone. We're lied to, and we've got proof of that, and gathering more. And some of them actually, play we don't know, etc., etc. So it's a real battle. Hence the importance of this Thursday's protest at the Defence Info session and this campaign to cancel AUKUS and the FPA. Just one very quick comment. We are out already to say cancel AUKUS and the FPA. That doesn't mean we don't support other people calling for an inquiry, etc. But we're not going down that track. And I really think that this particular campaign needs to keep that central focus. Otherwise, it's going to become a bit messy and confusing. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Leonie. Full of information, and yeah, we're all learning from what each other are doing and looking for ways to coordinate and work together and support each other. So I'm now going to go to Derek from PACOA in Adelaide. You there, Derek?
Oh, hi, Annette. This is Peter.
Oh.
Derek doesn't have internet access tonight, so he won't be able to report.
Okay, well, perhaps you might be able to provide an update of what's happening there with PACOA, Peter. Or is there someone else on the meeting on the Zoom that would like to from Adelaide? No, Peter, go for it. Yeah, just
okay. I haven't prepared a report or anything because I wasn't expecting this to happen, but I can give a bit of a smattering of what's been going on. So, as you know, most of you would know, the suburb of Osborne in South Australia is being declared a designated nuclear area where the submarines will be docked and maintenance and construction work will be going on there. And this has caused concern in the community around that area. And about a year or so ago, a new organisation was formed called the Port Adelaide Community Opposing AUKUS, PACOA. And a number of events have been held by that organisation with the aim of enlarging its reach in the community. And as part of the National Day of Action, an event was held yesterday which was called Raucous for AUKUS. And it was held at the Osborne Community Centre, where mainly people from the community turned up there, as well as including representatives from the local Indigenous community. So we're developing ties with other groups there. We also had a number of speakers, one of whom was Jordan Shane, who is in the Australia Voice Party, and that party has contacts with the Muslim community. So we're sort of getting in touch with the Muslim community in that way. There were a number of speakers yesterday, including people from WILF, the MUA, FOPA, the Palestinian organisation, the Greens, and Port Adelaide Environmental Group, which outlined the environmental consequences of the expansion of the whole infrastructure around the submarines in the area, what effects that would have on the area. And so the main thing is we're in the stage now of trying to grow the organisation and reach people. And the positive thing, I think, also from yesterday to me was that there was a contingent of young people there, which was promising. The other thing is Derek attended an AFPA conference at the end of last month, which was held in the far north South Australia town of Corn, and a number of contacts were made with Indigenous people from up there. And interestingly, they were not aware of the forced posture agreement, and were very surprised about, how far-reaching that is. The other thing, about also in mid-August, PACOA held a people's concert where the community was invited to attend a concert of various artists, and the themes of AUKUS and the FPA were raised there as well. So basically, I guess you could say at the moment it's about reaching out to the community. And with the signatories to the call petition that IPAN has put out recently, Derek has contacted those signatories to see if they would like to become involved with that campaign to cancel AUKUS in the FPA, but so far there's been no bites, unfortunately. I think that's about it that I can say.
Thanks very much, Peter. Thanks for filling in that no notice. All right, now we're going over to New South Wales, Wollongong, with the Wollongong Against AUKUS group, WAWAN, and we've got Peter here. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you. Hi. Yeah, look, so we're called Wollongong Against War and Nukes. And so we started out as a specifically anti-AUKUS group. With the move to not to announce an East Coast base until 2030, it diffused some of the activity, because we don't have an active defence port or active proposals as they have, for example, in West Australia and South Australia, I guess. For us, it's been quite useful having chosen that name, because we had campaigns around, you know, the nuclear stuff with Dutton and nuclear power. And then we've engaged in anti-war activity and Palestine support activity, alongside our trying to build our group, which has been really quite a core focus for us. And, you know, our main aim is really to say no AUKUS and no bases and not anywhere. And, you know, once again, as I think Leonie mentioned, you know, it's not in opposition to movements for an inquiry or whatever, but it's not our focus in Wollongong. We're very fortunate in that we do have good support with the head of the South Coast Labour Council in the form of Mr. Arthur Rorris, who is very supportive of our group and, you know, comes to our planning days, you know, like, and gives us pretty good access to, well, we give him a platform and he will talk on these issues a lot. We are trying to work on getting better access to rank and file unionists. You know, we've got good relationships with the MUA, the teachers, with the nurses and midwives, but actually getting given access to get into some of the council meetings, things like that, and to talk to rank and file workers is difficult. And for us, we're trying to build a rank and file group. We're trying to get names on contact sheets. We're trying to build the number of activists who actually will come out and do things, because there's not enough of us and we're too old and tired. But in view of all of that, we've had some great events and great successes, which, you know, we've been very fortunate in. Labour Council moved May Day from Wollongong to Port Kembla, which is the port of Wollongong essentially, but it's a different town really. And 2 years ago, and we got 4,000 people on an anti-AUKUS, essentially May Day march there, which was just the most incredible opportunity for us, and to make those connections was fantastic. We work in our group pretty successfully with the Greens, with SALT, and a few other sort of activists from different bits and pieces of groups in a very non-sectarian way. I think, you know, by all accounts and from my personal experience from some time ago, it's been a lot less sectarian and problematic than a lot of people are faced with, which is a great relief because it's critical. One of the activities that we were fortunate to get access to in terms of reaching out to people and building the group was Wollongong Art Gallery, which is a regional gallery. It's a significant, good cultural centre, offered us a residency, which we took over in August for 3 weeks. We were given studio space. We were given a huge studio space, 6 days a week, all the days they were open. We were given numerous resources. We were given the education room where we went, we organised screen printing. We printed 150 to 200 T-shirts. We made badges. We drew people in, you know, we put flyers out saying, you know, love art, hate war. And we got students from the TAFE, art students. We got students from National Art School come down from Sydney. We got teachers come and help. You know, it was a massive boost for us, in fact, because for us getting out and actually making those connections is quite hard. Having said that, we really feel that following the bridge walk in Sydney, that has been a very positive change in atmosphere for us. It has opened up a range of opportunities. It's made people feel more confident about voicing opposition to the government. You know, our government, our state government had come out very strongly against people marching over that bridge, and people did it in their hundreds of thousands. It was, and it's had an impact. It's had a flow-on effect to us, we feel. And so our challenge is to really now try and make something of that within our resources. Within the group itself, we have, you know, a pretty successful united front, but we've got people with very varying ideas. So people will come along and get involved in some things, like, you know, the music event, or we had a Hiroshima lantern parade, and so they'll make lanterns and be involved in that. But in terms of actually looking at, you know, getting names on contact sheets, talking to people, encouraging engagement, people are a little bit shy or something. You know, it's like, it's hard. We're having to try and sort of train people in that. The other thing in our area is we have Bisalloy Steel, which people may or may not have heard about, but it's a steel manufacturer which the Palestine, Wollongong Palestine Action Group have successfully picketed, and we've supported and engaged with. I think it's now about 4 occasions where it's actually been shut down for period of a day or period of a number of hours. They've had one overnight picket, and they've got another overnight picket coming up. And that's been very successful as well, in fact. But, you know, we are fearful that at some point it's going to come to a bit of a nasty end. But you know, it's given us a focus about the war industry and all those problems. On that too, I mean, I think it was Lynn who spoke about, you know, the issue of jobs in defence. And so we're looking at that too, because following what's been going on in the UK around increased military spending, they've done quite a lot of homework around, you know, the multiplier effect of, you know, how many jobs get created by money spent on defence and how many get created from education and infrastructure and health and other things. And it's a huge disparity. You know, defence comes 70th, they worked out, which is pretty poor down the list. So we're going to have an educational on that. It's not really an issue for us at this point, but we feel like we need to get across all those arguments and feel confident about them. So that's sort of part of what we've got proposed coming up. The other thing we're keen to do is, and I have sent something out, which I think Lynn responded to, we're keen to go to the Rising Tide blockade in Newcastle. There's probably half a dozen Wollongong activists of various types who've already said they're going to go. And we've applied to them to have a workshop on war and the environment. And in terms of that, we'd like to, as soon as we can get some confirmation on that, which we haven't had, we'd like to put that out for collaboration with other anti-war groups. So if there are other people planning on coming and who'd be interested in assisting, talking, collaborating, working in a workshop like that, we'd really like to hear from you.
That's great, Peter, and we certainly can do our bit, like with communication on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you know, that's sort of where we're up to.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Peter. You've been very busy.
We work hard.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to hear now from Ross in Brisbane, Queensland, from the anti-AUKUS group in Queensland. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Annette. It's good coming last after everyone else, because it just sounds fantastic what's happening around the country. And it's very inspiring. The anti-AUKUS group here has, I think, been working really quite closely with the pro-Palestine movement in any of the big rallies. So Palm Sunday and Hiroshima Day and May Day, which is always a very big day in Brisbane with, 10,000 or more unionists there. So we've been active in that. We had a major activity when the ALP National Conference was in Brisbane, where the unions who've joined with IPAN, there's 5 unions in Brisbane who are part of IPAN, and they assisted us in producing a big paper mache submarine that, along with a big contingent of people, were protesting outside that national conference. So that was really useful. Brisbane, as well as happened around Australia, I guess, during the big mass movement in the 1980s against nuclear weapons, Brisbane City Council was forced to declare Brisbane as a nuclear-free zone, and on paper it's still there as a nuclear-free zone. So we're working up to try and to build that into the Brisbane City Council opposing nuclear submarines coming here if Brisbane is designated as the port for the submarines. So that's a bit in abeyance yet until we see more of what's happening, but that's a sort of campaign we will certainly work on at that point. The other thing I think which is encouraging here is that as well as working with unions at the sort of overall union level, we've decided that we'd try and build a sort of grassroots union activity here. So a couple of weeks ago on Hiroshima Day, we held a fairly successful display in the TLC foyer about 80 years of resistance to nuclear weapons. And out of that, we called a meeting of rank and file unionists who want to get together and talk about peace. And we had our first meeting a few weeks ago, and there was really quite a lot of enthusiasm. And so we're going to have a regular meeting every month of that group, which was calling itself Peace is Union Business. And there were quite a few young, you're talking about young people versus people our age. There's quite a few young people came to that too. And I think that really has legs, that particularly if it can incorporate young people talking to members of their own unions about the peace issue. I think that's a really important way for us to spread the message amongst that most important segment of the community. That's probably, I think, about all for now. Thanks, Annette.
Thanks, Ross. Yeah, thanks for that. And last but not least, we are going to hear from the top end, from Nicole and I think Kath from Darwin. You'll need to unmute, Nicole. Nicole, maybe you could just introduce, the organisation that you're coming from.
Yeah, hi everyone. So we are Teachers and Families for Palestine, primarily, but obviously one of our core principles that guides our actions is demilitarisation. And we collaborate with another major group here in Darwin. So we've been doing lots of actions. In May, Ross just mentioned unions. We passed a motion at conference calling on the Department of Education to cut ties with STEM companies that are sponsored by weapons companies, so Lockheed Martin, BAE Systems, all those big ones that Lynn was speaking about earlier, because
Right.
Luke Gosling is our federal MP, and he is the chair of the Parliamentary Friends of AUKUS. And he recently made a comment in the NT News, I think it was.
And proudly.
Very proudly saying that they're embedding the defence into the fabric of Northern Territory society and culture, which bothers us because on the 1st of July, Territory Day, the organisers of Territory Day proudly brought back the F-35 flyover. So, which means people go to the beach before they let off their crackers and celebrate these machines of death in the sky. Children view them as entertainment. And so we organised a petition letter, a quick snap action calling on the organisers to can it. We knew they wouldn't because it was 2 days out. But we got a lot of people responded to that petition letter, wrote to them. So we feel like we've started some momentum there. For next year, we'll be more organised to start the pressure earlier. On the 4th of July, we responded to IPAN's call to action to do something on Independence from USA Day. And we had an action outside of Gosling's office, attended by about 40 people. And we heard about a football match that was on that same night. It was a friendly match between US Marines and the Australian Navy. So we thought we'd go along to that match after Gosling's action. And we took our big banner, USA military out of Darwin, and parked that up there. We were asked to leave by security. And luckily, Kath's partner lawyer stood very firm and said, well, we don't think we're trespassing here, we're staying. But while we were there, so the Oval was surrounded by military equipment, and children were being dressed up in military gear, had rocket launchers next to them, they were handling guns, and they packed that away when we were there. We were flying the Palestinian flag, and we were, yelling and shouting a little bit. We were holding our banners up, but they packed all of that weaponry away. And then when we were leaving, we saw them pulling it all back out again so that the kids could continue to play with the weapons. So Gosling really is true when he says that they're embedding it into the fabric of US American flags on the stadium. It was just awful. So that was on the 4th of July. On the 19th of July, we found out, the whole declassified. Kelly Tranter exposed the military Tyndall air base had sent F-35 parts pretty much direct to Israel. So from the territory, they'd gone to Newcastle, then they went to Sydney Airport and were flown over to spare parts for the F-35s to Tel Aviv. So we just did a letter for that, didn't we? We did a letter, we did a post exposing it. That got 5,700 views. So just raising awareness about that. And we've, we've got a market stall. So we've still got that post up. I've laminated the footage from that post, and we're asking people to write to him and exposing that, parts are being sent to Israel from here. On the 27th of July, HMAS Prince of Wales came and docked in Darwin Port, and David Lammy and Hersey, someone Hersey came, and some comrades did a snap action to try to block the road, stood there all day from John Healy, stood there all day, waiting for the motorcade to come past, and just disrupted as much as they could with a small group. There was an arrest and fines, but the message was still there, this AUKUS, horrible AUKUS deal that we've got, and this biggest aircraft carrier in the world docked just, not far from us. And then we had the Darwin Festival. The Darwin Festival board decided to give concessions to defence personnel, including international. So that's US Marines and ADF get concession tickets at the Darwin Festival before other workers, before teachers, before nurses, and so we started a campaign for that on do-gooder, and we got, not many people wrote, 50, but a lot of people wrote independently. I would say it would have been up towards possibly 100 people wrote to the board protesting that. So we've identified another campaign to be more organised for next year. And then on the 11th of September, which I think everyone here would know, the federal government or the Defence Department just announced that the ospreys that come here for exercises during the rotation of the 2,500 Marines that are stationed here in the dry season will now remain here permanently. So it's like a part of the stockpiling plan to prepare for AUKUS, you know, and its war with China and the future violence that is to come. And Lynn, I'm not sure if Lynn is still here, who messaged, I think from South Australia, about the intrusion of weapons companies and defence on education. So on the 18th of September, we've got a educational seminar planned, weapons out of schools. And it's a collaboration with New South Wales, Victorian, South Australia and West Australian teachers, because we've all passed motions in our unions. And Elise West, who is chair of the Medical Association for the Prevention of War, is the key speaker. And she's going to be speaking on how STEM programs, around 30% of STEM programs are sponsored by weapons companies, the largest weapons companies. So the intrusion on schools. I've put in the chat there a link to the flyer. So it's available online. If anyone, yeah, we've got photos. We've got a great post of the kids in, yeah, and it went, how do I share that post?
If you've got it on your computer, you can bring it up, or you can, yeah, just go to share on the Zoom.
I can only share it from my phone.
Okay, that's fine. Just
I'll share it at some point. I'll share it with you. I could show, yeah.
It's hard to see, I think.
Yeah, it's hard to see, but it's I don't know if anyone can see it. No. So we use the flyer.
That's really great that you're doing that, and you've got that in that link to sign up to attend that educational seminar, and the fact that it's largely unionised teachers that are organising it is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
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 So you're doing some great work there.
We've got the market stall, and we hope that you're seeing a few more signatures coming in from Darwin now, or the Northern Territory, because we're prioritising that a bit more. We've had, you know, some bigger actions, so hopefully you're seeing, yeah, some more sign-ups.
Yeah, that's
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, what a medley of around the country, and hearing what everyone's doing in different ways, and depending on the what's happening locally, that makes a big difference. I'm just going to ask Bevan, who is the campaign organizer or coordinator for the Cancel AUKUS and Forced Posture Agreement, to just give a very brief sort of discussion starter, I suppose. Not that we probably need it. We've heard that many different ideas. And please, you know, make sure you do have your say, you know, and what you liked and what you'd like to learn more about, etc. But Bevan, would you like to share some ideas with us?
Well, where are we and where we're going to, or where to from here? in terms of the background, this campaign to cancel AUKUS and to terminate the forced posture agreement was initiated by IPAN as an essential step to help clear our country of its heavy US military footprint and so help keep Australia out of yet another disastrous US war, to probably be against China. Now, we're becoming aware that the Albanese government is showing no sign of responding to the parliamentary crossbench and the civil society calls for an inquiry into AUKUS. Instead, they have strengthened their commitment to AUKUS by signing that 50-year agreement with the United Kingdom. This is for design and help in manufacturing SS and nuclear submarines for Australia. And the Albanese government is prepared to allocate $47 billion to assist the United Kingdom in that venture. Additionally, of course, they're committing billions to develop port and maintenance facilities in WA. Firstly, at HMAS Stirling and at Henderson. At Stirling for the US and UK hunter-killer nuclear submarines for use in the US war. Now, in addition, just lately, the Labor and the Liberals combined in Parliament together to force through the Senate a bill to enable the provision of 1,000 homes in WA for US military personnel and their contractors for the AUKUS project. And they've done so despite widespread homelessness in the Australian community. So it's clear that a change in direction will not come from Parliament at the moment. So it's back to us, working with all parties we can to campaign for an end to AUKUS, and we have to step up our efforts. We have to extend our campaigning deeper into the community to promote a national conversation to generate that political will for cancellation of AUKUS and the FPA. Only widespread opposition can generate that political pressure for such a change. Now, tonight, if you're not already involved in one of those organisations, please consider joining one. You've heard the wonderful work being done around Australia, and they need more feet on the ground. And if you haven't signed the call on government to cancel AUKUS, please do so and pass it on to others. There's so many ways we can promote this campaign, and you can on your social media, distributing leaflets in public places, organising small discussion groups, for example, with neighbours, workmates and family. The call on government is a vehicle to use to start a conversation. Now, I'm sure we have many more ideas. Let's hear them. It's your turn now.
Thanks very much, Bevan. Well said. Well, I suppose...
Annette, could I interrupt for a minute, Annette? Sorry.
Sorry, who's speaking?
It's Ron from Victoria.
Okay, Ron.
Do you want me? Do you want me to give a report of what we've been doing in Victoria, or is someone else going to give that report? Or you know?
No, fine, Ron. I just didn't hear back from Victoria when I put the call out for speakers. So if you could just give us
okay. So what happened was
a quick update, yeah.
Sorry. What happened was that Shirley Whitten, sorry, you know Shirley sent me a report, okay, and I wasn't sure what to do with it, and I sent it to Peter, okay, and so look, I'll be quite brief to talk about what we've been doing in Victoria. I'm sorry, I didn't realise the process that you go through, but I did send it to Peter, okay, and I thought I wasn't sure. Anyway, the point I'm about to make is this, that we have spent several months putting together a forum that we're going to run next Sunday at the Victorian Trades Hall Council, where we're going to focus on the AUKUS agreement. And we've got a number of speakers, number of well-credentialed speakers to speak at that forum. So we've been distributing leaflets. I think we've distributed something like 1,200 leaflets promoting this particular forum. And I'm quite enthusiastic and keen to see it being a successful event. I believe it will. I was out on Sunday distributing these leaflets at the Palestinian rally, and the day previously people were distributing them at the support for Aboriginals in the city. And I think we got a very good response from what I could gather. So we easily distributed 1,200 of these leaflets. So hopefully we get a good response next Sunday at the Trades Hall Council.
Yeah, great. Another example of hard and consistent work that's going on in the community. So any questions to any of the speakers? Put your hand up in using the React button on your website, on your screen. Eileen?
Yes, hi, Anna. I was very interested with Lynda from Newcastle. The question I have is, I think it's very important that we concentrate on this militarisation of the schools and universities. I haven't got an idea about how we do it. I'd like to know if the teachers are on board with us campaigning against this. Yeah, just what the situation is.
Okay, that's a question really for Nicole, I think, and Lynda maybe, but mostly Nicole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Eileen. So we would love anyone to join the seminar on the 18th of September. Is that what you were saying?
I'm just wondering if we could have a sort of a national campaign about the militarisation in schools.
Yeah. We would love that. Are you able to can you see above? So at the end of the talk on Thursday, we are going to discuss how people can respond in their communities personally. So it would be fantastic if people here who are interested in this campaign could attend, because that is on the agenda at the end. We hope to organise a lobby group, so because the policies are different in every state, obviously. Northern Territory doesn't even have a policy education department on harmful industries. So we really, really do encourage anyone who wants to join with us and help to pressure governments and get weapons out of schools, because they're hoodwinking our children. They're funneling them into a pipeline towards building weapons of mass destruction, and it's terrible. So yeah, please, can you see the link to the flyer there, Eileen?
No, I haven't.
It's in the chat, Eileen.
I can send it again.
Nicole, could you just repeat which states you've got people talking at the seminar?
So Elise West, she's based in Queensland. She
was in Melbourne.
Yeah, well, I think she lives there, works remotely, but she's, Elise? Oh, you know Elise? Yeah, so Elise will be the main speaker. Lucy Honan is union rep and Teachers for Palestine Victoria. So she'll be speaking on what's happening with that in Victoria. Chris Breen from New South Wales. He's union member and Teachers and Families for Palestine. And Ruth Ellis from Western Australia. You probably, thank you. Who did that?
Jonathan.
Technology, there you go. So if you scan the QR code, you can register, and it does have the speakers there. We've got, yeah, great. So you could scan that with your...
Terrific, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
And we've got a rep from South Australia who's going to be speaking on what's happening there. And of course us. So
yeah, that's pretty much the beginnings of a national campaign. A good good entry into it. And maybe Eileen or Leonie, if there isn't anyone already. Oh, yes, there is someone from WA, Ruth Ellis. So that's great. All righty. Thanks for sharing that, Jonathan. And I think Tamara had a question or a comment. Questions or comments?
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, it's more a comment. I'm sorry, I missed the call for speakers, so I don't have a report from ACT, but I just wanted to make one comment, which is that we haven't really been so active on campaigning against AUKUS and the FPA in the last couple of years, because we've been really, really involved in the campaigns against Israeli occupation and genocide in Palestine. But what that's done has been to really strengthen our ties and enable us to make new ties with a very large group of much younger, very politically active young people, mainly students. And I think that in the future, those ties are going to be really important for campaigning against AUKUS and the FPA.
Thanks. That's a good point to raise, and the importance of the interconnectedness of the Palestine people's struggle against America's main ally in the world.
There has been overlaps. So, for example, we've been distributing leaflets at all the rallies about the connections between the Australian government's stance on Palestine and AUKUS.
Yeah, for sure. Other questions, comments from anyone? I think the social media issue came up fairly frequently from each of the speakers, the importance of using social media. And I did think it would be great if any of you have a social media, your organisation has a social media platform, whether it's X, Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook. Could you put the details of that in the chat so that we need to know what we're all sharing so we can on-share it, and to follow those social media platforms is necessary for us to know what's being posted, so we can all follow each other. That increases the reach quite significantly, and I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Maxine, lovely to see you here. Maxine Barry, you're our new Quaker representative, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
I just put something in the chat. Also on the 21st, we are having, I've got a finger in so many pies, I've really basically haven't got enough fingers. So IPAN is my latest, but it ties in with so many other things I'm already involved in. I'm on the committee of Pax Christi Victoria, as well as being a member of Religions for Peace, which is a worldwide organisation that's been going since after World War II, I think. It's pretty old, maybe even older than that. So that's a multi-faith organisation. And the organiser here in Victoria is based in here in Victoria, Sue Ennis, but it is Australia-wide. Anyway, I've just been asked to post a registration site for this webinar that's going to be held on Sunday evening of the 21st. So you can still go to your NoAUKUS gathering at Trades Hall if you're in Victoria, but it's online, so anybody around Australia can attend. Unfortunately, I'm just a total IT klutz, and I have no idea how to post a registration for it. I'm afraid you'll probably just have to Google Religions for Peace and find it for yourselves. I'm very embarrassed and sorry to have to admit to that, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that
that
webinar will be presented by David Purnell from the Canberra Quakers, The Quakers sponsored. We have a peace worker who works for us 3 days a week, who's absolutely amazing and extraordinary. And she presented this report, which is very lengthy and detailed, on the Australian so-called defence industries, put together with Peter Woolcott, who's had a very illustrious career as an ambassador, etc. On the opacity of the Australian defence industry is really something. It's the worst in the world, I think, in lots of ways, except perhaps for North Korea. So it's to try and shed some light on that and to press for proper transparency, so we know, what's being spent and on what and going to whom and all that sort of thing. Well, we know it's been like pulling teeth to try and get information about what Australia's manufacturing that's going into the war effort against Palestinians. We've got a fair idea, but it's been pretty hard to winkle that out. So this report is quite an important one, and information on that will be presented on the Sunday.
Wonderful.
Can I ask, when is that going to be presented? Because
the report has been presented and is now available. Yeah.
But hang on, I thought you said you're going to have it presented on the 21st.
Oh no, this will be a presentation about it, but the report itself was presented in Canberra at Parliament House about a couple of weeks ago. I think I think David Pocock might have been the MC for that. It was
okay.
Yeah.
No, I just wondered whether it was going to clash with our forum. That's all.
So the report is available. I'm not sure. I wish I could tell you exactly from where, but yeah. So it is in a physical form now, but it should also be available online, I would imagine. So
Thanks
it's really to inform people in the multi-faith community about this topic.
And perhaps, Frances, I see you online. Have you got a link to the report that you could put
Frances
in the chat?
might well do, because she
Could
probably
you put a
went
link to the report in the chat?
I'll see if I can, but I'm not sure. I'm not very good with the community. I'll see if I can find the email. Okay, give me, I'll have a look.
Alrighty.
So Frances, did you get to go to the
website? It's on the Quakers website.
Is it?
Okay.
Alrighty, that's great then.
Luckily, they're not all IT klutzes like me, and possibly Frances.
Alrighty, now I think I did see a hand up before. Who was that? They seem to have disappeared now. Rita, did you want to say something? Yeah. Go for it. Are you muted, Rita?
In response to what Ron, I think, said earlier, there is a session, What do Faith Leaders Need to Know About the Australian Arms Trade? And that is on the 21st of September, but it's 5 p.m. So it shouldn't clash with the other, with David Purnell as...
That's the one I just was speaking about, Rita.
That's right, yes. And I've got the... it's on Zoom, so I can perhaps share it to whoever wants to know about it.
Good on you.
It's on from 5 to 6:15 p.m. on the Sunday. So
I've got 5 till 7, but maybe.
Oh, it might be, yeah.
Hey, got another hand up, Jeff?
Oh, hi, thanks. I'll be very brief, but just a couple of things.
Perhaps, Jeff, you could just tell us where you're coming from, or if you're associated with any organisation.
I'm associated with a small group called INAG, that's the Inner North Action Group from North Melbourne. And we've come recently to this issue, but we've been working on other issues. And I'll just, first of all, comment on some of the things that have happened. I go to Ron, I think, was from Wollongong. We're also sending a small delegation up to the Rising Tide activity in Newcastle, and I'm sure we'd be interested in working in your workshop if you'll get that established and going. So if I could get in touch with you about that, we could follow that up.
I think it was Peter.
Peter, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. I also go to Ron. I got a copy of Ron's flyer that he was talking about the seminar on Sunday at the address by Doug Cameron, which was a fantastic address, and it is going to be published online if it not already is. And I just recommend, and people should be aware of that address because it's very could be quite influential. And some of our members will be going to your seminar on, so that's good. Just a third point, and this is a question to everyone. We're looking at the possibility of, because of the lack of action by the current government on this issue, we're looking at possibly working with the community independence groups. And I was wondering if anyone else had looked at the community independence and the crossbench and how they might assist in this sort of general activity, both inside and outside Parliament.
That's a call out from Jeff for anyone who has been working with the crossbench and independents. David Pocock is one of those independents. And I know, Tamara, do you want to comment on that in terms of, work that you might be doing in Canberra with David or other independents at the Parliament?
We went to speak with David Pocock's research assistant, whatever you call him, some time ago. He actually wasn't that they weren't really doing much in relation to AUKUS, because they said they hadn't had enough contact from the community about it. So yeah, look, I'm not really sure if that's changed now. David Shoebridge, I think, is much better. I mean, he's really been really strong on opposing AUKUS and the FPA.
That's true. Kathy's got a hand up.
Yes, I've been involved with the community independent here in the seat of Bean, who nearly won against the Labor member and cut down his lead by 12%. And also went to a community independent conference just the other weekend, which was really excellent. And they had 3 young people who were really articulate and passionate and really inspiring. And I think we should get involved with and talk to the independents as much as we can, the ones who are already sitting members, but also the candidates that are coming up, which are being selected now for the next election. So I think it's a great movement. Obviously, the Greens have got a good solid policy on this, but if there's no Green likely to get elected in your area, I think the community independence is the best other alternative.
Okay. We'll have Leonie, and then I'm aware that the time is coming up. Well, it's reaching the 1.5 hours, and I think that's enough for all of us. But I will hear from Leonie before we finish up.
Yeah, it was just to say that I do recall that the community or the independents were one of the very first to publicly call for a review of AUKUS, if I remember correctly. But unfortunately, that's all at a standstill in Parliament at the moment. Yeah.
All right.
They called for an inquiry.
So, my apology. Okay.
A big thank you.
It was a good statement.
Big thank you to Jim for opening up tonight's sharing of information and ideas. I think the importance of working with First Nations peoples has been emphasised. The union movement, the faith movement, and just having those conversations in your own communities with your families where possible. That is one of the things that we would like to assist people with, and to develop resources that will help people to broach those conversations. I think Bevan did share the little information video on the chat earlier on in tonight's meeting, but that's a good way to, you know, broach it with people. If they haven't heard of the Forced Posture Agreement, you can say, well, I've got something you can learn about that, and just what the impact that that's having on our sovereignty and involvement in another war, probably another world war if it did eventuate. So raising these issues, I think the schools are incredibly important, and parents and citizens organisations, teachers. It's so fantastic to see what the Teachers for Peace and Palestine as well are doing. But the activism that's happening in WA and in all of the places that you've talked about today is very encouraging to know that that energy is out there. And I'll just emphasise again to try and get this petition, the call to cancel AUKUS and the Forced Posture Agreement, sharing that outside of the bubble of the already committed with friends, family, you know, other groups that you're in. It is our opportunity to connect with those people. And that's what we've got to try and do, is to get out of the bubble of already aware and engaged people and get this conversation happening more widely in the community, and sharing, having those people share their thoughts and concerns with their local member of parliament and with leaders in political movements and organisations. So we'll finish up here now, but again, a big thank you, and we will be in touch in the future. Bye for now.
Bye.
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 Thanks, Annette. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks, IPAN. Thanks all.
Jesus
Christ. Jonathan, do you want to stay on, or are you gone already? I think you might have gone already. I'll just end it for all. Good night.